If you're thinking of getting an e-bike, stick around. I have some thoughts on the subject which may be beneficial to you in making your decision as to whether or not you should get one. Now, there are some huge advantages to having an e-bike. I bought mine 4 years ago when the world had gone mad and politicians were telling us when we could go out, where we could go, and how long we could be out there. I needed a means of getting some exercise, getting some fresh air, and just giving me the freedom to go places where I wasn't just stuck in the house all the time. Now, before I go on, I just want to say that this is not a review of my particular e-bike. That would be pointless because I bought it 4 years ago and I don't even think they make this particular model anymore. The reason I bought this particular bike was because I was looking for a bike that was readily available because at that time, most of them were sold out. I wanted something, if possible, that was made in the US because I didn't want to wait 6 to 10 weeks for something to ship from China, where most of these things are made in the sub $1,000 category, which is what I was looking for. I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money because I wasn't sure if it was something I was going to like or actually even use. So keep in mind that I'm speaking in general terms here, and what I have to say applies to any e-bike. First off, I want to say that having an e-bike is about the most fun that you can have on two wheels. You have no idea how exhilarating it is to hit that throttle and just have like an invisible hand push you along when you're having trouble or when there's a steep hill you don't want to navigate, or just having the wind, in your face. There's nothing like the feeling of an e-bike. The other thing I like about having an e-bike is that you no longer have to fear the hills, especially if you're not in the best physical shape. If you have some kind of a health issue that prevents you from strenuously going up, a 45-degree hill or something, you don't have to worry about that with an e-bike. Just add a little more throttle and up you go. So the terrain is no longer an issue. You can go just about anywhere you want to go, including off-road. There are times when I've done 20 miles on an e-bike, and when I've got to the end of the ride, I hadn't even broken out a sweat. On the other hand, if you want to, you can really get a good workout because it functions as a regular bike. Just pedal, put it into the gear that you want, and off you go. So the level of exercise, the level of resistance is totally up to you. And I think that's a great thing. Storing an e-bike is a piece of cake. I just wheel mine right into the garage, put the kickstand down, and I'm done. It's not like storing a jet ski or a snowmobile where you need a lot of room, you need a trailer to tow it. It's just easy peasy. An e-bike is also really convenient to own and operate. You plug it in 4 hours, it's fully charged, and depending on how much throttle you use, you can get 30, 40, 50 miles on a full charge. And that's not a bad thing. The less you use the throttle, the farther you're going to go. And that makes it really cost effective compared to other modes of transportation. Naturally, there are some downsides to owning an e-bike. When I got mine, I thought that it would be an alternate means of getting from point A to point B, and I could leave my car at home a lot of times, but that wasn't really the way things transpired. Number one, unfortunately, and this is the age we live in, e-bikes are a high value target for thieves. So I've never really let the bike out of my sight. I mean, if I'm going to go to the local grocery store, I'm not going to take the bike and chain it to something because I just don't trust that it'll be there when I get back. The other thing you need to consider is battery life. I don't mean the time it takes to go from one charge to the next. I mean, how long is the battery, the internal battery, going to last on your bike? Because that is an expensive proposition to have to replace. Thankfully, I haven't had to replace mine yet, but I have looked, and I've looked on the website for this particular bike, and I've looked on other websites for different manufacturers, and the battery is a huge expense if you do have to replace it. For this particular model, it's almost half the price of the actual bike. So, you know, if you can get 3 or 4 years out of a battery with harder use than I've given my bike, then that's another cost you have to factor in. As far as maintenance goes, the only thing I've really had to replace on my bike are the brake pads. That's something that you can do yourself, but that leads me into another huge disadvantage to owning an e-bike, and this is something that never actually occurred to me when I bought mine, is that they're very difficult to get repaired. Even though this bike is made in the US, there are no local bike repair places or mechanics, bike mechanics that know how to fix this bike in my area. And I don't live in a rural area. I'm 30 miles away from New York City. So if something major goes wrong with this bike, you're pretty much on your own. And that's a problem with all e-bikes, I think. If you buy a bike from a particular manufacturer, if you take that bike to a mechanic that is certified for other manufacturers, you're not going to get your bike repaired, chances are. My advice is to buy a bike locally from a shop that does its own repairs. Now, remember when I said at the beginning that I was looking to spend less than $1,000? Well, in the 4 years since I've purchased my bike, that has gotten more and more difficult to do. So the initial cost of an e-bike, especially if you buy a better brand locally, is going to be a heck of a lot more than that. You're looking at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, maybe even $5,000. So that's something that you should really consider. The other factor that you should consider is the weather. Like I said, I live in New York, and for most of the year, it's cold here. And I don't like to ride when it's really cold. My hands get cold, my face gets cold. So for me, that means that peak riding season is between late April and mid-September, because after that, it just gets too cold for me. I mean, if I was in a warmer climate state or area of the world, then I would ride more, but that's not the reality for me here. I've tried riding in November, December on some pretty cold days, and I just don't enjoy it. The last negative when it comes to e-bike ownership is the weight. The weight of the bike is way more than a regular bike. The battery's heavy. The battery in this bike weighs almost 8 pounds on its own. The frame is heavier, the tires are heavier. So if you have a breakdown and you have to pedal this to your house and there's a lot of hills, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. If you have to pick it up, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. If you want to put it in your car, yeah, you have to be able to lift at least 65 pounds. Another feature I thought I'd use a lot, but haven't really used at all, this bike folds in half. And I thought that would be a great thing to just fold the bike, pick it up and put it in the car. But I found that it's a lot easier to just pick the bike up this way and put it in the car if I ever have to do that. And I rarely do that. Once you fold it, the center of gravity is all off. It's off balance. It's more difficult to secure in the vehicle. I just never do it. So what's the verdict? Should you get an e-bike? As long as you understand what you're getting, that it's not all positives, there are some downsides to having an e-bike too. As long as you understand all of that and the financial aspect is not an issue for you, and you live in a climate where you can take the bike out, then I would say absolutely go for it. If it was me making the decision now, I would definitely buy another e-bike. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again on the next one. Bye for now.